I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Right, we are back,
Hello.
and up for your delights this month we have the whole steady Teeth Dreams, we have Hurrah for the Riff, Raff, Small Town Heroes, Liars, Mess, Baby Metal, and we have the amazing Snakeheads, Amphetamine Ballads, and finally EMA or Emma, The Future's Void.
Yeah.
So we'll start off by the return of a band we both quite like, and indeed their title track of their previous album was our favourite track of that particular year.
In fact, it was probably an anthem for the entire podcast.
Indeed.
Yes.
So the whole steady and Teeth Dreams, their 6th studio album.
6th.
Yes.
Wow. Shall I?
Yes.
Shall I? Okay. I've got to stop calling it With Teeth for a start. It's Teeth Dreams.
That would be an interesting
The
mashup.
first of many nin references. This album is oh god, it's so effing cliche. It's a real return to form in my mind. I actually think this is probably my second favourite album of theirs ever.
Ooh.
Yeah. And let's not get into that. But I found that this album was an absolute joy to listen to. I have to admit, first listen, it took me a while to get back into the whole steady groove set.
Yep.
But actually, second, third, fourth listen, it was just an absolute pleasure to listen to this album. It's everything you expect from the Hold Steady and more.
Ooh.
I'm going with the cliches this time, if I don't every other blooming time.
So does that mean there's going to be a solid album in this podcast somewhere?
There might be. I haven't done one of those for a while. It just brings it all back as to why this is such a great band and a great sound. And it's not to say that they wavered in recent years. I mean, you mentioned the previous album, apart from that one song which has really stuck in my mind. I have to admit, the quality of the album is thinking. I haven't listened to it recently, but it sort of wavered.
I did listen to it again recently. It's still a good record, but they were obviously trying to do more, or they were trying to branch out with more in that album. Whereas this album, they seem to have come back to.
They come back to their roots.
Yeah,
you know, and it's all there. The opening. The bright lights and the beer and the barroom brawls and the dancing and the girls and the boys and just a roller coaster of one pissed up followed by hungover Good Morning America. It's just all there. This album is the Hold Steady. So you're going to ask me now what tracks I like?
Well, no, feel free.
Obviously, the opening couple of tracks. Were very strong. It has a very strong opening.
It does indeed.
This album. The first two tracks. I hope this whole thing didn't frighten you. And Spinners. You got to get yourself out there. A real sing-along quality.
It's a big city. There's a lot of love.
Yeah, it's a big city. There's a lot of love. And you know, even the bad nights aren't terrible. You know, it's just classic. A classic Hold Steady with the big sing-along chorus at the end. You know, even bad nights on terrible.
Yeah.
You know, all of that. It's all there, touching on you know other tracks of the past that we've liked, and it does branch out the further into the album. I think the last few tracks in particular, it starts to push the boundaries of the previous album, and of course we finished with a couple of quiet ones at the end as well, which are sort of more reflective.
Very much so, yeah.
Reflective tone.
Indeed.
It's. I think it's a great album. What about you?
I'm the same, yeah. And similarly as well. First listen, I was partly disappointed. First listen, the first two tracks grabbed me straight away. Yeah. The rest of the album, I was kind of not sure.
That, isn't it? Yeah.
But then, as you say, after a couple more listens, you are back in that kind of South Minneapolis world of Craig Finn's with the music, the bars, the drugs, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And musically, you're also back with the kind of AC/DC, Thin Lizzy type kind of 70s rock, and also hints actually of drive-by truckers.
Yeah.
That kind of like, particularly that southern kind of thing, particularly on tracks like Wait a While. I could quite easily see Wait a While being a drive-by truckers song.
Yeah.
And I think that all kind of blends well with kind of Finn's kind of esoteric, kind of almost Springsteen-esque storytelling style and his jittery, staccato-y vocal delivery kind of thing. Like you, I think the album starts off really good. I really like Spinners, and particularly like the kind of pre-echoed start to the guitar solo in it, when you can hear the guitar solo starting before the guitar solo starts. On With the Business, I think it's a really great song. Particularly like I said a couple of things that probably weren't technically true line in it, which is just a great line.
Yeah.
I have to criticise the Oaks at the end slightly, since I've previously given several artists, including Elbow, a hard time for over-indulgently long songs, and this goes on for nine minutes.
Yeah.
To be fair, 3.5 minutes of that is kind of an instrumental outro, but it still goes on for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
The only thing I think lets the album down slightly for me is actually the production, which was done by the guy's name I've forgotten, Nick Raskulinecz, who has previously done Foo Fighters, Rush, Evanescence, Marilyn Manson, people like that. And whilst I think it does sound good and sounds big, I think it's very focused on the guitars and Finn's vocal, and the kind of drums and bass do tend to get a bit lost in the mix.
Yes.
But that's a kind of minor quibble with what I think is also, it's certainly their best record since Boys and Girls in America.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So,
it reminds you why they're a great band.
Yes.
And I kind of don't really care if they do well over here anymore. Because that used to be the always thing that bugged me about them. I don't care anymore, they're just a great band.
They are.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to see them live again at some point this year.
Yeah.
Next up is a fifth album, unbelievably, by a band called Hurrah for the Riff, Raff, Small Town Heroes. This is one of those great ones, because if you kind of read that kind of band name, even as I did, first of all, you're probably thinking there's some kind of, English quirky indie band or something like that.
Yeah.
And actually, it turns out they're not that at all. They're a kind of country, folk, bluesy kind of outfit from America. It's very much American roots music. It's that country blues vein, but tinged with hints of kind of traditional Woody Guthrie type US folk. Some Springsteen, obviously, and even bizarrely some 60s soul. So you've got kind of traditional kind of country tracks like I Know It's Wrong, which could almost be a kind of Hank Williams type, country song, very much, country and western, as was. And then you've got End of the Line with its brash harmonica, which is very Springsteen-esque.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, you've got weird tracks like No One Else, which has you kind of harking back to tracks like On the Boardwalk and kind of Wonderful World. That kind of whole kind of 60s, 70s soul thing going on.
Yeah.
And it's not a great record, but there's enough on it that I think makes it worth a listen. From the opener track, which actually reminded me a bit of Abigail Washburn, with the kind of banjo and fiddle going on.
Yeah.
I can't remember the track now. Blue Ridge Mountain.
Blue Ridge Mountain, yeah.
Not the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Not that one. And I also really love the song Good Time Blues, which is a slow, brooding blues track, funnily enough, with nice brush drums. And it's just very mellow and laid back. And it's kind of the kind of warmth of her voice kind of carries the song really well. So I like this record. Like I said, not a brilliant record, but enough on it that's made me glad that we reviewed it.
Good. It's a solid album. Bing. It's a nice. I've written in my comments here. I've just written nice. Nice. It's a good blues and country record. Touching on some of the things that we've liked over the last couple of years around proper bluegrass, banjo-led instrumentals with a really a really warm female vocalist over the top.
Yeah.
And again, some really quality storytelling in the lyrics as well, without harping on the sometimes it's hard to be a woman cliches, but it sort of evokes an experienced songwriting, storytelling
thing.
In the songs. So yeah, a nice relaxing record. Not one of my favourites of the podcast.
Yeah.
In that I think we've listened to a lot of this sort of stuff.
We have recently, yes.
In recent times. For the first one we've had for a while actually. But a nice solid album if you like all of those things we just mentioned.
Yes. So changing musical style yet again. Next up, we have Liars.
Obviously, with this podcast, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
This long.
We have Liars, and this is actually their 7th album.
Good grief. Good lord.
And it's called Mess.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is like I said, this is very different.
Yes.
How different, Pete?
And in the same note where I've written nice, above that, next to Liars Mess, I've written fascinating.
Welcome to Dictionary Corner.
Pete's thesaurus. I actually really enjoyed this record.
I thought you might actually.
It surprised me because again, first listen, I thought, what on earth is going on here? I mean, that opening track. I can smell your pants. I want your face.
I want to eat your
I
face.
eat your face. Eat my face. And you think,
Yes, Mask Maker. It's a catchy opening tune.
It's a catchy opening tune. You think, what is going on here? I think again, it's very experimental.
Yeah,
but with a real appreciation of modern house and dance music broadly, but house music in particular. I like to think, I'm sort of thinking, who can I compare this to? It's kind of like, had Ministry been 20 years younger? And Had they come together after the house revolution of the late 80s and 90s, this is probably what they'd sound like.
Yeah.
Because there's that industrial stuff in there.
There is that industrial stuff in there. Yeah, there's definitely industrial stuff in there. There's hints of Yesayer in there as well, musically.
Kind of the weirder stuff that Yesayer do, exactly. But it's just a really interesting album to listen to. You don't know if 1 minute it's a rock album, the next minute it's completely left field. It's got some really interesting tracks on too, so it's not just all weirdness. I mean, there's some quite catchy stuff like Mess on a Mission.
Yes, which is a single.
Yeah, which is the single. The Electro Clash scene of about 10 years ago, which sort of fizzled out and died. If this was a continuation of that would fit right in there. And there's a few really interesting instrumentals as well. Boyzone, intriguingly.
Yeah. Ronan's not on it.
It's a surprise. And Pro Anti-Anti.
Pro Anti-Anti, I really like Pro Anti-Anti.
I really like Pro Anti-Anti. And it finishes with Left Speaker Blown.
Yeah, which I also like. It's kind of slow drawl, electro, with almost
drawn.
murmured, almost kind of incomprehensible vocal.
It's a real soundscape. So, as I say, fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. It is fascinating. It is. I'm just trying to think. It might actually be my least favourite of the podcast. I'm not sure, though. But that's not because
for me.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure. I keep changing my mind. Actually, what my favourite the podcast is. I pretty much agree with it. It is genuinely a fascinating album. It kind of ticks the box if you're into kind of good, quirky instrumental stuff, electro instrumental stuff. Even if you want to go as left field or Aphex Twin or something like that. It's more less twiddly than Aphex Twin. It's more focused than Aphex Twin.
Yes, but
it's an image more focused thing.
Yeah.
And even some of Moby's earlier stuff. But then you've got some proper songs in there as well, as you said, Mess on a Mission, Facts are Facts, and Fiction's Fiction. And the video for that is quite funny as well. It has them going backwards upstairs in various different places. It's very, very odd.
Okay.
As odd as the song, really. I agree. Pro Anti-Anti is another one of the really good tunes on it. And Dress Walker I like as well. But yeah, it's fascinating.
Yes. I always like an album that feels like it's been recorded in one take as well. A point I'm going to come back to later. But certainly the opening tracks, you've got Mask Maker goes straight into Vox turned DVD. And it just sort of takes you. So after the initial weirdness, just before you hit the stop, I'm not listening to this button. It sort of brings you into its own weird world.
I know, but unfortunately, then it goes into I'm No Gold, which is I think is one of the worst.
That's one of the weaker tracks. To be fair.
So, having left fascinating.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
let's just move on to plain bonkers.
I didn't have a word for this.
This is Baby Metal and Baby Metal.
Yeah.
And this band was...
Please tell me more about this band.
Yeah, was initially formed
Why are we
from a J-pop band.
Right, okay.
Japanese J-pop band
called
Sakura Gorkin. Which the idea of J-pop is you get kind of prepubescent schoolgirls singing, kind of S-Club Juniors, but Japanese style.
Yeah.
So anyway, apparently last year, one of the band was going to get too old to be in it, and they came across this wheeze to merge J-pop and metal.
In particular, thrash metal.
Particularly thrash metal, because obviously that's what the world had been missing.
Yep.
But to be fair, there's a big heavy metal scene in Japan, as well as this. So the artists, 2 14-year-olds, 1 16-year-old, Suzuka Nakamoto, Moa Kikuchi, and Yui Mizuno, that's what they were originally called, are now called Su Metal, Mo Metal, U Metal. It gets better actually, because half the songs are written by Nori Metal,
right.
MK Metal, Naka Metal, Subo Metal, Black Baby Metal. So as you might guess, listeners, this album is bonkers. Originally a group of singles essentially, and so they've put it together to create an album. So a bit like the Beatles, really. Sorry, someone had to say it, Pete. But I'll start off with the bad.
Go on.
It is 13 tracks. This means that it comes in at almost an hour, which means this is a long record. And because it's long, it does get rather monotonous in places. However, I have to say, when it's at its best, it is a rare, odd treat.
Yes.
What I mean by that is songs like Megutsun, which perfectly combines kind of Japanese koto, electro pop, and heavy metal with a chorus that I think Paramore or a band such as them would be proud of. You've got Doki Doki Morning, which combines kind of heavy metal and basically, like I said, S Club 7 on helium in the chorus. Catch Me If You Can, which I really like, which is good fun, and like the opening track, which is pure out kind of thrash, has Guest May on growling backing vocals. And Headbangers towards the end, which I think is just actually a quite straight rock track, which I actually quite like.
Yeah, it finishes with a proper rock track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, it has to be said, there are other couple of moments when you just bizarre doesn't even come close to describing a couple of the songs. So Line, I think particularly, which manages to flip between thrash metal, S Club, and some strange kind of West Coast rap hip hop thing in the middle of it, which is just one of the weirdest things I've heard in recent times. The only thing weirder is perhaps the kind of faux reggae on song 4.
I was going to mention the faux reggae on song 4,
which is also
dropped in there.
Yeah, just very odd.
Just as the monotony of the album is starting to get to me, they drop in this faux reggae beat.
But for me, the highlight of the album is the most pitch perfect piss take of Limp Bizkit I have ever heard. Onodarai Dasukusen is just Limp Bizkit with better lyrics and without Fred Durst singing. Genius. So actually, for me, I actually quite like at least half of this album.
Yeah.
It's bonkers, too long, but sounds better than it sounds. It sounds better than it sounds on paper.
Yes. I just haven't decided which half I like, where that half is. I've got nothing to add to that, except in addition to the
except you're looking forward to their White Album.
I'm looking forward to the White Album. In addition to the sideways reggae that's dropped in there, did you spot the dubstep as well?
Oh yeah.
Now, the track that follows song 4, Uki Uki Midnight,
yeah,
this is some proper dubstep. and Catch Me If You Can, which immediately follows that. There's some proper drum and bass as well.
There is some proper drum and bass, Catch Me If You Can.
So it's almost like halfway through the album they thought, oh, we need to spice this up and just sort of pick the box of...
Let's leave no genre unturned.
No genre is left unturned by this album. There is literally something for everyone.
But let's get it. When it thrashes proper.
Does.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not pretend thrashing, it's real thrashing.
This is a real thrash album, folks. Good.
So, moving swiftly on.
That was so enjoyable.
Moving from Japan to deepest, darkest Glasgow.
Yeah.
And the debut album by a band called the Amazing Snakeheads.
Yeah.
Amphetamine Ballads. So, how did you feel about my fellow citymen?
Yeah, I like, again, an album that takes more than one listen. Seems to be the thing.
Absolutely, yes.
But again, I mentioned this a few moments ago. The idea of having an album taken in one take, or sat watching a band perform an album live, really comes across again on this particular record. I don't know if you picked this up. It's sort of each track sort of fed into the next, fed into the next, and what you got was a guttural story of creatures of night. I can imagine this band, I sort of look a bit lank, and they've got long hair, and they look like they could all do with a decent meal and 2 weeks in Ibiza just to get some sun.
Yeah, so I wrote down visceral. So you said visceral. So same
guttural,
on the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can imagine that, they only come out at night. From the songs that they're singing and the approach to the songs that they're singing, it's a brilliant album in that respect. It's a really interesting rock album. Actually,
it is.
It sort of completely avoids all the modern cliches of it's got an indie album, or it's a post Coldplay album. Now this is a real rock album, but again, it could have been accidentally recorded at any time over the last 40 years.
Yeah, well, I thought there were obviously hints of kind of early Nick Cave and Bad Seeds kind of thing in there, and if anyone remembers John Spencer Blues Explosion as well, and there's elements of that kind of sound going on as well. But there aren't many people doing that kind of thing at the moment. Really,
even Nick Cave sort of turned his back on it. So it was a really refreshing album to listen to, and as I say, if they rocked up in town and performed this album live, track by track, you'd be in for a treat.
Yeah, I think they'd be. I agree. I think they would be interesting to see live, because it is. I mean, I look. It starts with a fucking gong, for God's sake. Yeah, what's better than that? You're basically imagining the guy from the Rank Cinema thing, hitting the kind of thing, and then you get this guitar come in, which then suddenly fades away, and then this kind of pounding kind of bass line with the drums kind of slowly comes in, and then I think it's safe to say that frontman Dayon Barclay hasn't won many singing competitions in his time.
Doesn't matter. He
comes in and screams for all it's worth.
Yeah.
And in Glaswegian for them. And then you get and it is just, it was talking about visceral. You got, she's more fucking beautiful than any woman I've met, and she fucking knows it. And it's the kind of way he says it. It's just great. And elsewhere you've got the song Here It Comes Again, which is dare I say it, almost catchy. Where basically the only lyrics are him saying Here It Comes Again, but it actually doesn't feel like that. It actually works really, really well. Where Is My Knife is another one I really liked, because I think it's got a wonderful guitar riff running through the middle of it. Although perhaps the equating knife and penis imagery might not be everyone's cup of tea. But then you also get what's essentially a jazz tune. Every guy wants to be her baby.
It could be a Beatles song with a title like that.
Yeah, but it's kind of very, I mean, jazz tune in a very kind of David Bowie-esque 70s kind of way, with sax to the fore and stuff. But it's very chilled, laid out, until you get that burst of guitar halfway through that kind of beefs it up towards the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, as you say, it's a band who you kind of think would be interesting to see live.
Yes. Scott's just left me. He's gone.
technical issues.
Are we still there?
Yes.
Oh, good.
You know, unfortunately, the engineer kind of left in a huff. We'll be leaving in a minute and a half. Boom! Thank you, great show. Thank you, great show, Marks.
Thank you.
So we will end with the third album from Emma, EMA, The Future's Void.
Yeah.
So called because her name is Erica M. Anderson.
Okay.
And
That
this
I did
is.
know. She's American, right?
She is American.
Yeah.
Yes. She's I'm not sure where. South Dakota.
South Dakota.
And because you kind of mentioned this at the start of the podcast, I already kind of know you feel what's you going to say here. There's definitely a hint of Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, and PJ Harvey kind of overseeing the palette of this record.
Yes, there is a palette. I like it. Yes,
and I mean in a good way.
It's different stages of Nin. Have you noticed throughout the podcast? It's different phases.
And because of that, it's an interesting record. I genuinely mean that it's got. I mean, there are. I mean, songs like Smolder and Cthulhu and stuff you could imagine kind of Depeche Mode and Nin actually doing. Frankly,
Cthulhu was very much a Depeche Mode track.
Yeah.
I
particularly like the use of scream distortion on the vocals on Smolder.
Yeah.
Was really effective. I also like her use of lyrics. The whole album seems to be. I mean, she's obviously been very keen on novelist William Gibson and his cyberpunk novel New Romancer, which the tracks on it's called New Romancer, which is also very kind of combination between PJ Harvey and Nin. And she managed to have a good dig at social media and particularly kind of selfies and that, which I really like. There's a great line of. You know you've got one too, and it knows more than you do about the things that you do, which I thought was quite a good way of putting it. And also, again, on 3 Jane, which is a kind of more atmospheric ballad, there's this line, feel like I blew my soul out across the interwebs and streams. It was a million pieces of silver, and I watched them gleam. It left a hole so big inside me, and I get terrified that I will never get it back to me. I guess it's just a modern disease. Which again is kind of about the whole sharing nature of the internet. Everyone wanting to share everything, which I'm guilty.
What we're doing right now.
I'm guilty of myself. Yes. Elsewhere, I read that the opening track, "So Blonde," actually reminded me of the band Concrete Blonde, who were around 80s, early 90s. Fronted by a woman called Jonette Napolitano, I think. And When She Comes, which is a kind of acoustic tune, which I thought was kind of reminiscent of the kind of thing that kind of Courtney Love, right?
Yes.
So again, like all the albums for Riff we've done this, it's one that is definitely it's a record that's definitely a grower.
Yeah.
And there's when it's good, it's good and genuinely interesting, and I think she's certainly an artist that's worth following.
Yeah. I would add again with the digs at social media throughout this, the closing track "Dead Celebrity," which was Lana Del Rey in its approach.
Yes,
yeah. Very much like a couple of tracks off her album musically. So in many ways, very different to what preceded it. In terms of it was certainly a bit more poppy.
Very poppy.
Yeah. Whereas everything else had sort of been a bit dark, quite a lot dark actually, and brooding. This was very good. Satellites as well.
It's quite fun. I think it's very poppy, called "Dead Celebrity," mind you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So a lot again, and this has been a theme with this podcast. A lot of thought lyrically into what she wants to convey in each of the songs, and musically very interesting. My only thing on this one would be I wasn't so keen on the production of this as I was on some of the others. We've kind of covered dark brooding electronica twice on this podcast.
We have,
and comparing this to Liars would be unfair. But it I've made the comparison.
Go on, do it anyway.
I've just done it. It's too late. So it didn't do that quite as well. But I felt again It's their third album.
Third album.
Third album.
Well, apparently, lots of reviews have been saying second album. But I think they've been overlooking an album released in 2010.
Yeah. So one to watch.
Indeed. So, album of podcast.
This is tricky. I'm going to go with The Hold Steady.
So am I, but with my runner-up being Amazing Snakeheads.
Okay, my runner-up is going to be Liars, Mess.
You heard it here, people.
Yeah, you did.
Until next time.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the CTTV Music Podcast.